Speaker for today. I'm just going to do the share real quick.
Hello, everybody. I'm Vice President Matthew Brosick, and I don't know about you, but that might have been one of the more the best speech by any student of the month that I think I've ever heard. So way to go, Jim. That was amazing. In front of you before, and now that I heard her talk and the level that she just spoke at, now I am nervous. So I'm going to give the microphone over to Slag. I'm really excited as the Vice President to have been able to line up a lot of these speakers, one of which I'm really excited for today. Adult and Teen Challenge is something that I feel very passionate about. I, as a donor, don't give a ton of money to a lot of organizations, but I do focus on a few that I feel really passionate about, one of which is Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. So would you please help me welcome Slag and Adult and Teen Challenge.
After Julia, I felt a little bit like underachieving. She was impressive.
Yeah, I can hit the button.
Thank you. So, how many of you, I'm the Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge. How many of you are pretty familiar with Minnesota Adult and Teen Challenge? Okay, we've got a number of you. We are best known for our long-term faith-based recovery programs. And we operate 14 different locations across the state. We had 698 people in beds last night in different cities across Minnesota, dealing with long-term addiction and trauma. And so there are many short-term programs that we have across the state, across America, programs as short as 7 days, or outpatient programs even. And then we also offer those programs, but the core of our program is that long-term residential program. And that's where we feel we see the greatest success. It's long-term because the level of addiction we're facing today, especially the methamphetamine epidemic here in the Midwest, we believe we need long-term solutions to deal with that level of trauma and addiction. And then also we believe that the faith center makes the difference in transforming from the inside out. Now, I can take a lot of time today to talk about our programs. I'm going to try to get to that as quick as possible because I brought a couple of our graduates here today. I'm going to ask Emily to come up and share her story with you because I think it really illustrates what it is that we do for us in the Midwest.
Hi, my name is Emily. I grew up in Plymouth, Minnesota. I have two parents that have been together for almost 40 years now. Grew up in a really stable home. At a young age, I found myself very successful in swimming. I was an athlete. And I ended up going to Boise State University where I swam in college. I found that swimming was like my sense of purpose, the reason why I wanted to live, the reason why I wanted to breathe. I valued and I put everything, all of my success, everything into swimming. And I found myself as a sophomore with the knee injury, and that set me back a little bit. And then when I graduated college, I moved back to Minnesota and I got into a very toxic relationship where I found alcohol and I turned to that as my purpose and that as my value. When I was in this alcoholism and in this addiction, I really, I felt really lost and I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know what to do. I just felt like alcohol was the only thing that could fill this hole in my heart that I had and this hurting that I had. And I just wanted to numb that pain. And so when numbing that pain, I just continued to drink daily, and I would wake up to just drink to feel something. And it got really, really bad. I ended up getting a DWI on July 3rd, 2019. Was in jail for a few days. That was the point where I kind of admitted to my family like I needed help, but I didn't know what kind of help that was. So I started going to AA, and I still drank. I still was sneaking around, getting alcohol however I could, and I just didn't know how to stop. But I knew I needed something bigger than Alcoholics Anonymous. So I talked to my family one day and I told them that I needed help and I really needed something that would help me change who I am and help me find who I am again. So I went into Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge and I went in for the 30-day licensed treatment program. And there I decided that I needed more time. So what Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge has is a long-term program. And after drinking and being alcoholic for 5 years, I knew that 30 days wasn't gonna cut it. I needed 13 months. I needed that time to heal my heart and to heal my brain and to really find out who I was and then like understand my passions. And so with Teen Challenge, I am now, oh gosh, almost 3 years sober. It's a great, we have a really great team around the development team at Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge. What I value the most about everything that Teen Challenge has given me is they've given me restoration with my family. I hurt them a lot. I'm not happy about what I did, but they were always there for me and they always supported me and they did what they could to get me into treatment. And now that I'm 3 years sober, I can be that for them and I can be there for them and support them however they may need me. So, thank you.
Sinai in just a few moments, but Emily's a great example of somebody who just got caught up in addiction, didn't know how to get out. And we're so proud of her. We have about 650 employees across the state, and just over 40% are graduates of our program. That's how we believe in the success of our program. Let me give you just a few numbers. Back in 2017 and 2018, the federal government announced they felt we were going through the worst drug epidemic we ever had, and then COVID hit. And that isolation and the mental health issues during that time, in 2019, we saw a 20% increase. In 2020, we saw a 30% increase in overdose deaths. In Minnesota, for every overdose death that we have, there are 14 non-fatal overdoses that happen. Those are people that are able to be brought back with Narcan or get into the hospital and get taken care of. So when you think about just how many people die from overdoses in America, there's 14 that aren't dying, but they're having an overdose. In 2021, that was 107,000 Americans who died of an overdose. I think we hear it in the news, but we don't often see it in front of us. You guys do. We do a Teen Challenge. How many do you both know people who have died in the last few years from addiction, right? So there's a large community that goes largely unseen, even here in Mankato. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Fentanyl has been the big thing in the news. Some people use fentanyl straight. It often gets put into other drugs. When we were kids, perhaps, and I mentioned this on the drive up here with these guys, you know, you could maybe smoke some pot and it was pretty weak and it was a whole different animal. Today, you don't know what you're getting if you're at a party and you take something. And kids are so impressionable that sometimes we've called it Russian roulette. You know, we see kids dying the first time they're using because they don't know what's in those drugs. And so we're seeing this tremendous epidemic. Teen Challenge has risen to meet the need as a nonprofit. We don't really want to grow because that means there's a bigger problem in our society. But we continue to grow because of the need. And so last year in 2021, we served just over 3,400 individual clients through one of our programs across the state. I mentioned earlier that we've got 14 campuses. As far north as Duluth, Rochester is the closest one to you. Here's an interesting thing, because people go, hey, we've got tremendous support here. There's a number of large organizations that support us. Matt has stood with us for years, and some other folks in this room. And people will say, well, you don't have a center, you don't have a program. Well, I looked last week. We've had from the Mankato area, the Mankato, Blue Earth, and Seward, right? A couple other counties right around you. We've had 1,034 people come from your area into one of our programs across the state. That tells me that we are, if not the largest, we are one of the largest residential drug and alcohol treatment providers in your state. And so we've had a number of large organizations that have given money recently to set aside. We had a big state that came in, some big that's part of our state. And we've been looking the last few years for land here in Mankato. We know there's a tremendous need. We recently hired a licensed alcohol and drug counselor right here in Mankato that works full-time out of Syria to figure out what our needs are. So we have outpatient treatment, counseling, and then referring for the other programs. So you have a tremendous need here, and we're here. We're doing everything we can to solve that need, recognizing that those issues are coming up. I'm sure you see it. I'm sure you see around you that there are issues, that there's problems. You see it in the news all the time. And so we're here. We offer a number of programs in addition to that year-long faith-based program. That's our #1 program. There's very little support for a long-term faith-based program. We also offer licensed short-term programs. Emily referenced that. We found that a lot of people don't want to come into a year-long program, but they'll come to a 7-day, 30-day, 90-day. Maybe they just want to get their parents off the back, or force them into quite a few people to come see us. For you two, did you both start the short term and you weren't planning to go to long term? Yeah, so that's how we trick them into the long term program. We get into that short term program, and we can take insurance, medical assistance, some government support grants, and then the clients can choose to come into that long term program. And about close to 50% do. And so we recognize those short term programs have worked for many people, but again, for the level of addiction that we're facing, heroin and methamphetamine, people really need that long-term program to make a change. So we offer community outpatient treatment in a number of areas. We've got the licensed residential treatment, the long-term recovery. We've got our Lakeside Teen Boys out of Buffalo. We've got a camp out there that takes boys as young as 14. We take young women as young as 16 in Minneapolis and in Rochester. So we're serving those teen populations. We've got our Know the Truth prevention program last year. Spoke to 45,000 kids in public high schools and middle schools. And they don't send me, they send these guys. You know, folks that can really speak the language of those youth. They were seeing tremendous results there in kids that are being touched. And every life matters. Every life's important. So I know I'm giving you a lot of big numbers. Last year, a number of you helped us with our Freedom Manor facility in South Minneapolis. We invited people from this part of the state to come up. One of the things I'm most excited about with Freedom Manor, I don't know if you remember, we had a little bit of arrest in Minneapolis a few years ago. And my wife and I were camping in South Dakota. And we went back and turned on the news. And right across the street from Freedom Manor is precinct. And it was under siege. And we had the post office. I mean, you can hit it with a rock in our building. It's right there. Burned to the ground. The Wells Fargo building burned down. None of our buildings were touched. And I came in the next day and was walking through our building, and we just made the biggest mistake of our lives. And I realized as I'm saying that we're exactly right where we need to be in the city. And women and girls come from all over the state to Freedom Manor. One of the things we're most excited about right now is we started a child protective services program. So women with kids, you know, if you come into a year-long program with children, you got to send those kids to foster care. They got their parent and grandma. But now, women with kids, they can have their kids in for supervised visits right in our location. They're able to have overnight visits or up to a whole weekend visits with kids. So we're able to reunite those families with parents who lost their kids because of their abuse. So women who are getting back on their feet, they get that opportunity to reunite with their family. And that's one of the coolest things. If you're up in our area, call me up, I'll give you a tour. I'll walk you through, because it is so cool to walk through there and see moms with their kids just being reunited. And sometimes, you know, they can actually get their kids back in their lives, which is something they hadn't been able to do. Standalone outpatient facilities across the state. And here's something I like to point out. For every one of the clients that we have here in Conklin for our licensed treatment, we're able to take insurance dollars, medical assistance. That program is not faith-based. And clients can choose to participate in faith-based things like chapels. For our long-term faith-based program, there is no support. So that comes entirely from donations from across the state, really across the country. We raise $1,460 per month per client. And last time we had 690 people across the state. You can do that math, but I'm going to tell you what, I'm not folks just like good these things, it's somebody else's problem. We can make a difference here. And I know I'm preaching to the choir right, because I know Kiwanis does so much amazing work. This choir is really sad. Kiwanis does so much amazing work for kids, for young people around the country, or at home. So I know I'm speaking to the choir. But this program really isn't about leaders, it's not about buildings, it's not about programs. It's about the whole community of the Midwest coming together and saying, we can make a difference here. We can come up with some answers that really work with the soul, so they're not that wheel just going in and out, treatment, back out. And so I'm really thankful. You might actually mention that you have 2 of your nieces that went to the program, and they went to the program in different states. Right. And so Minnesota Adult Teen Challenge is one of 240 teen challenge programs around the world, or independent 501c3. They're all very different, but they have similarities, and they all have long-term faith-based program that's been very effective for people around the country. And Sinai, you're one of those folks. Will you come up and share with these people what's happened in your life and what you're doing now?
Hey, thank you for having us here today. My name is Sinai, like Mount Sinai. My story's a little different than a lot of people in addiction. I grew up in the church. My father was a pastor, so I'm a PK, a pastor's kid. And if you were in the church growing up, like sometimes church was just something you did because your parents kind of told you to go. And that kind of put something inside me because we were forced to go, and I started to push away from church. And when I was a young boy, 13, 14 years old, I started hanging out with the wrong people. And then I was just doing things that a young teen wasn't supposed to do. My alcohol and drug addiction didn't start until a little later in my life. When I was 20 years old, my dad passed away from a heart attack. And the last conversation I had with him, I was just yelling at him and screaming at him. So I felt that he passed away. He had his heart attack because of what I did. We had a disagreement. And instead of turning to my family or other people or professionals for help, I turned to alcohol. And I started drinking at the age of, I was drinking at 17, but I started drinking really heavily at the age of 20. And it just became, it was every weekend I was getting drunk, and I was functional. I still went to high school, I still went to college. I got married, had a daughter, and in 2010, 11, my marriage started getting rocky. And instead of turning to counseling or help and seeking help in the Lord or in professionals, I started to cope with cocaine. And now cocaine and alcohol became one drug. And once it became one drug, my life just started going downwards. I've gone through a lot in my life medically. Like I said, my dad passed away from a heart attack, so there's some hereditary health issues there. But because of the alcohol and the cocaine, I flatlined in the hospital in 2017, and I had to be resuscitated. And then, and this is part of, when you're in addiction, stuff like that doesn't just stop you because you're trying to cope with the pain and the hurt in your life. So you just continue to use because that's all you know. And that's what I did. As soon as I got out of the hospital, I started using again. I started drinking again. And for another year and a half, I was right back into that lifestyle of using cocaine and drinking. And now it was starting to be every day. In 2019, in February 2019, I had a heart attack. And again, my mind was like, well, you haven't died yet. This is how you've been functional. You can continue using, you can continue drinking. You haven't lost your job. You haven't lost anything. And after that heart attack, everything changed. I was losing jobs. I lost my apartment, lost my car. And in the spring, in March of 2019, I had a pacemaker put in. So I'm a 40-year-old guy who's flatlined, who's had a heart attack, and who's had a pacemaker. And then it was my sister-in-law who prayed me into Teen Challenge. And you might be sitting here with and you might know someone in recovery. And I just want to share with you that your prayers and your effort to help them out goes a long way, because when I was in it, I didn't care. But now I'm looking back and I know that my sister was my guardian angel. And I share all this because, like I said earlier, like my story is a little different than a lot of people, because addiction doesn't care. It doesn't care what the color of your skin, how much money you have, what your social status is, where you live. It's just, if you give it a chance, it's going to take over your life. And then I came into Teen Challenge. She was a volunteer in Teen Challenge choir. I actually showed up at her church just the same month that she got me into Teen Challenge, and that's how she made the connection. I came to Teen Challenge in June 2019. I graduated the long-term program in June 2020. The faith-based program really helped me connect with my grow a relationship with God, but the short-term program also helped. It was the clinical part of it, of understanding why I behaved certain ways or why I coped with alcohol and drugs versus how my brothers and sisters who grew up in the same lifestyle I did coped with in other ways. And then I went on to the Leadership Institute after the long-term program, which is a ministry-based year-long program where you learn more about God and you have sober living for another year. And then I started working for JJ. And God's done so much in my life. Right now, I'm at Crown College. I'm in my senior year, getting my bachelor's in Christian ministry and a minor in alcohol and drug counseling. And I hope to just continue to work for or work with the men and women at Teen Challenge and just pour into their lives, because Julia talked about it a little bit when she was up here, talking about how she was affected by someone that came before her and she felt the need to pass that along. And that's kind of where I am. Like, there's a lot of people that paved the way for Emily and I to even be standing here today. And that's just my goal, is to continue to pay that forward. Thank you.
I don't know what I can add to that, but just a couple of things that will open up for questions. Usually people have more questions for them than they do for me. One of the things that we've had recently is the Wilder Foundation comes in and does independent studies on our numbers and our results. The Wilder Foundation just finished a third independent study. In the last study, they showed that 67% of our graduates reported no drug and alcohol use in 6 months prior to student, which is unheard of. The drug and alcohol programs rarely take surveys or do numbers. The long-term program really works for people. But here's the thing that I thought was really cool. Another 13% that had one lapse, but they had the tools to get back up. From our perspective, that's a big success. We can get people tools. You have to be standard fees, Sinai 3 years from cocaine and alcohol, 3 years, 3.5 years for you, or 3, almost 3 on Halloween. October 31st, we celebrate 3 years, so that's pretty cool. And then I just got a few things on the board here. Charity Navigators for 10 years, giving us a 4-star rating for our financial accountability and transparency. The Charities Review Council and the Star Tribune and its affiliates have consistently rated us one of the top places to work. I think part of it's just because we're so passionate. I'm really thankful for this opportunity, Mike, Matt, everybody here. Just give us a chance to share. If you want to get involved, you can jump on our website. There's a couple things coming up next Tuesday at the Mankato Center here. We're going to do, I think it's our 13th gala here in Mankato, and mascot seats. If he runs out of seats, he's going to buy more. So if you'd like to come, we'd love to have you. There with us is great to hear our choirs sing. Many people heard our choirs sing at churches here. I think I've been to 5 or 6 churches here in the last year with the play. And so we love this community. We're here for you. We want to partner with you. See we can continue to do a difference. Are there any questions? I know I gave you a lot of info. Right back here.
Are you affiliated with a particular church?
So when we started years ago, 60 years ago in New York, we were affiliated with the Assemblies of God denomination. But since then, we broke away. We're still got partnerships with all the denominations. But we're our own 501c3 standard, so we don't have a particular denomination. So, and we're here, we come to Hosanna, we come to Inspirational Outreach, we come to a number of churches here, we come to partner with it. Great question. Yeah.
What's your observation about fentanyl? Growth of fentanyl in the dangerous product?
My observation is we're in real trouble. And I don't know how we try to get into the prevention market so we can talk to kids about the danger, but it continues to flow in. The factories in Mexico are putting out fentanyl and that. The amount that they confiscate, the deadly amount that they confiscate is a minuscule amount compared to what's out here. And I don't know, Sinai, I don't know if you can speak to this, but I mean, some of the dealers, they deal their street cred with some of these guys. Like they actually, the dealers, they get people so close that they die, they feel it gives them credibility to their stuff to their home. That's really dangerous. And so fentanyl's put in as getting mixed into things. They're hoping to add it, cut it into some of the drugs, not the heroin they're doing, to get a greater high and greater market share. And how do we stop that? that flood. So we've got an issue that you gotta help people that are hurting. We really have to get that message across our kids, our grandkids. You know, there's two key indicators of a lifelong addiction issue. Number one is the age of first use. We see a lot of our clients have started at age 12, which is astronomical to us. If you start by age 12, you're almost guaranteed a lifelong addiction. And the second one is mental health. So if you have a family member that has mental health issues, a young person, take it very seriously. Get them the help when they start to self-medicate. But yeah, we're extremely concerned about that. Sometimes we feel like we're just playing catch. You know, how do you attack? The federal government has to be able to do it yet. I don't blame them to do the best they can, but it's coming in from all directions. So we just need public awareness. Yeah.
What do you guys think about more and more states allowing?
Great question. How about you guys? What do you feel about marijuana?
Oh, yeah, I can say something. Yeah, so, personally, I don't condone it, I don't, like it, I know that, like, going back to fentanyl, a lot of the drugs here, fentanyl is cheap, and so a lot of drug dealers will give people these, like, designer drugs, and it's almost always cut with fentanyl, and so often I'm hearing people that are just, like, even smoking weed, and it has trace amounts of fentanyl in it, so.
So, and that's the cheapness is part of it. So Sinai shared the use of cocaine, which we were talking about the way up here. I'm like, hey, you're kind of a bougie drug user. He's like an upper crust. Because, you know, cocaine kind of went out of style because it's so expensive. It's so easy to get mad for heroin. In my case, it says either heroin in their schools than alcohol. And so we have some serious concerns. What's interesting in the long-term program that we have, you know, we see meth, we see heroin, we see multiple felons. Sometimes you can say, well, marijuana is not that big of a deal. But I think we've all known for years it's a gateway. It's where so many kids start, and it's not where they stop. And so we've got some serious concerns about it. We've got a lot of legislative power, maybe quite a bit, at the legislator here. So we're doing everything we can. Obviously, there are things you can stop and things you can't, right? So, I think we're running short of time. Mike, you want to wrap this up, or?
Yeah, we have one more question.
Anybody else have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
How many different forms of fentanyl are available? Tablets.
You can get it in all kinds of forms. You can smoke it, you can snort it, you can shoot it up, IV drug users. Most of our clients, because we're at that level where most of our clients are really serious drug users, they're IV users, which means figuring out a way to ingest into there's a lot of different ways that you can take that, a lot of different ways that you can administer. Most often, when you're seeing IV use is crack, it's meth. I'm looking at these guys. The worst thing I do is I smoke a cigarette one time in high school. I'm just here because I love seeing the light change. I just really think it's cool. The difference that we see is live. So yeah, right back here.
Just one more question.
I feel like I got a call for that standing ovation quicker. I'm gonna get a hard question. Yeah, that's one of the methods. I mean, you can make it look like anything you want. So put it as a gelatin and turn it around. And how are you gonna get kids really young? And you'd be amazed at young kids, not just in the inner city. Last year or 2 years ago, I think it was 2017 actually. But in 2017 was the first year that we saw more overdose and drug use outside the inner city than in the inner city, especially with methamphetamine. We're seeing far more outside. So we used to think it was Minneapolis, Lake Street. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So that's it.
All right. Thank you, Jamie.
Sinai, it really puts it into perspective when we've got people who have come through the program. So I thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. I know for my nieces themselves, it's a big deal. My one niece has a 1.5-year-old daughter now, and the other one is off. I think she's in Florida now. She's off doing all kinds of great things because of the graduate program. So I thank you for that. Let's see, we'll stop share. That should do it. All right. And I want to mention that next week we have the induction of our new officers. So you'll want to be a part of that. I know I will be on the outgoing side. Thank you all for coming today. And I wanted to thank Dave. Dave, we got your paperwork now? All right. And Kristen, and was it Mike? I thought it was a wonderful name like Mike. So thank you guys for coming today. And please join us in singing number 6, When Kiwanis Calls. When Kiwanis calls, when Kiwanis calls, let everyone stand up. When Kiwanis calls, as long as we are able, we'll pledge to be our loyalty. Thanks, everybody. And JJ, Emily and Sinai, I'd like to get a picture of you with Matt. Oh, yeah, good. Since there was a strong connection to the organization I brought you here today. Great, thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing everything. And we're very filled down here, the way you're moving now. Hopefully that's not a reference that goes.
I do, I got it.
Okay.
Caught that one.
All right, well, I'm just gonna get you here again with the flag in the background. All right. We work real hard not to get the beer signs in the background. But it's a challenge.
Good to talk to you.
All together now. All right. Thanks. And Sinai, so it's SINA? Yeah. All right. Yep, I've got the paperwork for it right here. Would Jackie put in? Did she put in $5 or? Yeah, okay. And I don't have paperwork on it, and I found $35 in my wallet set aside, so I'm thinking that was from the week that we were looking for. So got that there that are in this recording.